Welcome to another episode of the Genius of The Sopranos, where today we will be looking at the 4th episode of Season 1, Meadowlands. If you're new here, subscribe to the channel for more Sopranos discussions. Check out my second channel, Cineronto Uncut, for bonus content. You can also support the channel by becoming a patron or channel member. Following on from the events of anger, denial, acceptance, Christopher is laying low after his mock execution, mistakenly thinking it was Tony who orchestrated it for giving his daughter drugs. Chrissy goes irate when he sees that Brendan's been given the Mo Green special, coming to the Bing and telling Tony that they need to go after Junior and his crew. Mr. Magoo is of course attempting to consolidate power as Jackie Aprile succumbs to his disease in this episode, and it appears that Camel Nose has completely constructed his personality on the mob movies he grew up with his
"This ain't negotiation time, this is Scarface, final scene, fucking bazookas under each arm, say hello to my little friend."
And given this is chastised by Tony and the crew, it's an example of The Sopranos saying, just as it did in our previous episode discussions, that real life doesn't work like the movies.
No one's going to the mattresses this day and age.
And this is demonstrated in the climax of the Tony Jr. succession confrontation. Though Big Puss says, "Here we go, the War of 99, there is no bloodbath in this conflict. Somebody dies in this episode, but it's the first episode where no one is killed, and instead, with a little help from psychiatry and cunnilingus, Tony's diplomacy and Machiavellian tact wins out." The title of this episode refers to a New Jersey wetland which might evoke a sense of natural beauty, green landscape and blue waters. But the Meadowlands are in reality infamous for its industrial pollution and a swamp that's been a dumping ground for mafia victims over the ages. In other words, something that we'd initially assume is warm and beautiful, but really it's dark and ugly. You can't help make the connection to the fact that Tony's daughter is named Meadow, who this episode reveals is aware of her family's secret. This young woman is actually aware that their beautiful home, environment and extended family actually harbours dark, disturbing realities. This is Meadow's land. Paranoia and control are two emotions that drive the narrative in this episode. Chrissy's paranoia over who ordered the mock execution, Tony's paranoia about people finding out about his therapy, Melfi's date becoming paranoid about leaving the home after he's beaten by the crooked cop, and Melfi and Tony discuss in detail on control and the illusion of control, what with Livia now having little control over Tony, now that she's in a nursing home, and Uncle Junior wanting control of the family after Jackie's dies. Meadowlands was the first real taste of dream sequences in the show, which would become a staple of The Sopranos. The opening of the episode is bizarre, Tony seeing Hesh glide past Melfi's window, the crew in the waiting lobby. Dreams are there to be deciphered in the show by both us, the viewers, and Melfi and Tony in their therapy sessions. This first dream sequence is like a dry run. We can clearly see the issues that plague Tony's mind, his fear at being caught and exposed by his crew being the most prominent. The way the camera unashamedly tracks up Melfi's legs highlight his attraction to her, which he would later verbalize in Prax Soprano. And when she turns around in the chair and reveals herself to be Livia in a wig, it suggests that behind the panic attacks, the stress, the therapy sessions, behind all of it, the grand architect of Tony's misery is his own mother. The shot of Livia from behind evokes a famous one from Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho, where it's revealed that Norman Bates' mom has been dead for years, him having killed her and kept her alive in his mind by absorbing her personality. And the further we get into The Sopranos, the more we see Tony become more and more like his mother. And I'm not saying this is an intentional reference, but it's worth pointing out to fuel the theory that Norman Bates was played by Anthony Perkins, who shares his first name with Tony. Up until this point in the show, the lines between Tony's family and his family have been firmly cemented. But here, they start to blur, beginning with AJ's realization and Meadow confronting her father in the next episode. We are now seeing those boundaries break down, the casual violence, as Melfi puts it. That blur between Tony's two worlds, the sacred and the profane, is symbolized with everyday household items that we might associate with Tony's home life being used as weapons in the mob world. A yo-yo, a woodchopper's axe, and Tony beating up Michael Pamlice with a stapler. Tony's beatdown of fuckface-itis is puzzling on a rewatch, When you consider how much of a big deal it later was that Tony punched Ralph Cifaretto, and we almost get an entire season of tension from it, isn't his mauling of Mikey something that should get flagged up? The Sopranos writers, they go too far. The way I might justify it is that Tony considers it retribution for Junior killing one of his associates and having Christopher beaten, and Junior would have known that Tony was going to respond in some way. And if it only resulted in Mikey needing to buy a new shirt, then Junior would have accepted it. Perhaps Pamlice wanted revenge, but Junior, having been handed the title of boss on a silver platter, told him to let it go, that better things await us now. In any case, the writers of the show have spoken about how the rules of the Mafia have often been discarded for the sake of the narrative. They bend more rules than the Catholic Church. I mean, we are watching a show about a mob boss who has therapy sessions after all. The beating of Mikey Pamlice also gives the show another chance to highlight both that the glory days of the Mafia are over and that real life isn't like the movies, with Mikey getting clipped with a staple gun instead of getting clipped, i.e. killed, with a real gun, and the homage to Michael Corleone's killing of Sollozzo in The Godfather with Tony dropping the staple gun to the floor adds meat to both of these points. Amid the tension between Tony and Junior boiling over and threatening to erupt into a succession war, Tony, sitting in the office of the casual voyeur Dr. Milfy, who in this episode gets a taste of the violent world she is obliviously surrounded by when her friend is beaten up by the cop, is told by Melfi,
"Would it hurt you to let your mother think that she's still in charge?"
adding,
"You know that sometimes it's important to let them have the illusion of being in control."
This, of course, plants the idea in Tony's head to give the title of boss to Junior, drawing the heat of the feds onto him while he secretly holds the real power with the capos behind Junior's back. Not only is Tony able to pull off this tact and savvy maneuver, he even manages to get Junior to let go of control of Bloomfield and the paving union.
Just one thing. You know I can't be perceived to lose face, right? So, Bloomfield and the paving union. It's my asking price.
Tony later acknowledges the therapy sessions help with this.
Give it another chance. Got a lot of good ideas here.
Which is a conclusive answer on one of the show's overarching questions. Did Tony's therapy sessions make him a better criminal, as suggested by the study Melfi reads in Season 6 and subsequently dumps Tony as a patient? Yes, they did, and here is the first of many examples where Tony takes advice from Melfi and applies it directly to his mafia world. She is his true consigliere, albeit a covert one. A naive therapist who unwittingly becomes a strategist in a mob war, which is further symbolized by her turning into Livia in the dream, what with Livia also assuming the position of unofficial consigliere and therapist to Junior, Tony's rival in this storyline. Once you see Junior visiting Livia at Green Grove and getting advice from her, mirroring Tony's relationship with Melfi, you can't unsee it, and all the little add-ons, like Junior's frustrations at what people are saying behind his back that he's seeing Livia so often, comparable to what people are saying about Tony's therapy when word eventually gets out. In fact, Tony's just suggested the idea he gets from therapy is the only reason why he's even sticking with it, and it aiding his ability as a mob boss is an intrinsic aspect to Tony's arc. You know who else had an arc? You're looking at him, asshole. That's right, we take a closer look at AJ Soprano in this episode, with his first scene being a beautiful one, where he and his father play Nintendo together, Tony messing with AJ before leaving. As I mentioned in a previous video where I dissected key scenes from Fortunate Son, after success in a football game, AJ turns down Tony's offer of eating out and instead asks his dad to play Nintendo with him, an offer which Tony rebuttals by suggesting they throw the damn thing out the window. That's dicked up. But this scene right here might just be one of the best memories the boy has of with his father, a time where Tony chose not to walk immediately out of the door, but instead take out 5 minutes to be with his son. And watching these 5 minutes, considering AJ eventually spirals into directionalness and depression, trying to kill Junior, his attempt to off himself, whatever happened there, it almost brings a tear to my eye to see father and son together and so carefree early on in the show. To cry like a woman, it's a fucking disgrace. Through a subplot with Meadow's guidance and where a school rival chooses not to fight him after a build-up of tension, much like Tony and Junior not going to war after a similar build-up, AJ learns that his father is not simply a man in waste management. The episode closing with AJ staring at his father in the graveyard, surrounded by mobsters, at the funeral of Uncle Jackie, after being told by Meadow to ponder on why they call him uncle if they're not related, is the apex of the boundaries between Tony's two worlds colliding and collapsing. AJ previously thought calling his dad a mobster is a stereotype and it's offensive. There is no mafia. But he is seeing the world with new eyes. He is, for the first time, seeing his father for who he is. We all go through that phase of learning our parents are not quite Superman. Heck, Tony in this episode compares his mother and Uncle June to children. But this isn't a coming-of-age moment that your average child experiences. AJ loves his dad. He looks up to him. But now he's confronted with the very real idea that he's a murderer and gangster. AJ's battle with depression, his self-esteem, his sense of identity, his failure at leadership, like when he faints at the possibility of becoming the manager of the football team. Perhaps they all stem from the moment he realized he's the son of Tony Soprano, the moment where he entered the Meadowland. The episode's ending is one of the best in the show. It's as dreamlike as the opening, in which, by the way, we see AJ peeking into Melfi's office at Tony, foreshadowing of what is to come in the episode maybe, and Tony's insecurity at what his son thinks of him, as he later brings up to Meadow in the next episode. The slow-mo, Tony's wink, Meadow's "see, I told you" face, the camera scanning the mafia, AJ looking thoughtful, leaning against a tombstone, a grave that his dad might just had a hand in, the end of an era, both in terms of Jackie Sr.'s reign and the end of Anthony Jr.'s childhood. It's beautiful, Rubenesque. And it would be easy to forget that AJ's question marks over his father is something that we, as first-time viewers of the show, would share, as we don't know just yet how evil Tony was, how far he could go, a question that would be answered in the next episode. I always found Junior saying to Tony, "You speak for the other captains," strange and noteworthy. Ignoring the possibility that the writers hadn't yet figured out all the dynamics, why would Junior need Tony to speak for the other captains in the DeMeo family? It's almost like an admission that Junior is more distant to all the other capos, and perhaps it clues us in as to why it took so long for him to get the reins, why even someone from Tony's generation became boss before him. It all links to the idea that Junior was always a bit of an outcast, propelled by the success of his brother perhaps, and always having a sense of resentment and insecurity as a result. We gotta give a shout out to John Hurd's excellent portrayal of the degenerate gambler detective Vin Makazian, first introduced pissing outside the nursing home parking lot inside of some elderly ladies. It's undignified. He's got that feel of a checked out has-been, and his beating of an innocent man is one of the many examples of people in Tony's sphere, the toxic person that he is, becoming subject to misery. The reason Vin beat the guy is because he thought Melfi was Tony's mistress and she was cheating on him. And the reason he thought that was because Tony didn't want to tell Makazian that he was seeing a shrink. We haven't quite got to grips with Tony's personality yet, but by the time we do, he doesn't need cops to beat on innocent men who are dating women he fancies anymore. He's perfectly capable of that himself, such as when he beats the assemblyman, as I discussed in great detail in a previous video. One of my favourite scenes in this episode, perhaps because of my familiarity with dealing with a narcissist, is when Tony brings the macaroons for Livia, and for a brief split second she looks pleased, as if she's about to reach out for one, before her demeanour becomes dismissive and she criticises them as being too sweet. And when Tony is about to leave, she tells him to leave some for the loonies, even though he knows that she'll be eating them. But in her warped worldview, she simply can't give Tony the praise, the victory that he craves, and she dangles in front of him with false hope. So there you have it. What do you make of Meadowlands? Are there interesting elements to this episode you want to discuss that you think I've missed? Let me know in the comment section below, and be sure to subscribe to this channel. Check out my second channel, Cineranta Uncut, for more Sopranos videos. Consider supporting the channel by becoming a patron or channel member, and thanks for watching.